Big Night Media Studios at the Boston TD Garden. This is the Word on the Street podcast, where it's all things AE.
I'm Mark Goodale. He's Mick Morrissey, and you're watching Morrissey Goodale's Word on the Street podcast. Mick, welcome. The 2026 podcast season is upon us, and here we are in our great new Big Night studio at the Boston TD Garden, home of the Boston Bruins, the Boston Celtics. What are you focused on this year, and what's got you excited about the upcoming year?
So in terms of focus this year, Mark, it's going to be a big year for M&A in the industry. Last year, 2025, there were 500 transactions in the industry, most we've ever seen. So we're in a completely new place in terms of how the design and environmental consulting industry is consolidating. In terms of what I'm excited about, it's really our new CEO symposium that we're hosting in May in Dallas. We're going to have about 100 CEOs from all over the country coming together, shared roundtable discussions, networking dinners. We're going to have guest speakers from around the industry. It's going to be fantastic.
Outstanding. Really looking forward to that. It's going to be a fantastic event. And you know what, Mick? Best of all, we have our partners joining us here today. Nick Belitz, Brendon Cussio, and Jon Escobar all flew in last night. Boys, are your arms tired or what? You see what I did there?
Very.
It's great to see you.
Humor aside, it's actually great to be back in Boston. And much like when I lived here more than 20 years ago, we're in the middle of a nice, cold, snowy winter. I'm quite certain there are chunks of ice floating in the Charles, and the Patriots are winning all the time.
Yeah.
So good times.
It certainly is. We'll see how that turns out. Brendon, great to see you.
You too, Mark, and thanks for having me wear 4 jackets.
Yeah, it's well, in Denver it gets cold too, but not like this.
Not like this. No, this is cold.
Yeah, it gets right to your bones, right?
Yeah.
Well, just move Denver by the sea and you can have it all.
Yeah. The best part about being here is I don't have to shovel.
Yeah. Rub it in. Jon, how about you? Nice to see you. Great to have you in from Chicago. You're used to it. Brutally cold when you left, I think.
I'm used to it, Mark. I've got shorts on the second half here, so this is a step up from Chicagoland weather.
Yeah, Jon, this is a family program. Yeah. So it's great to have you all here, and how we want to use the time while you're all here is to just have our viewers benefit from your big brains and what you're seeing out there. And so, we'll just kind of go around the table here and there and ask you about what you're seeing and what you're thinking and what you see coming for the AE industry. And Nick, start with you. What's the biggest shift happening under the surface in the AE industry that most firms aren't planning for yet?
Yeah, good question here, Mark. And we have, by virtue of doing our M&A symposiums for years now, always surveyed the executives and the leaders of the firms in the industry. And a perennial concern that they've had is just staffing and finding talent and recruiting talent. And what we're seeing right now, and I'm afraid this is going to be the downer portion of the program here, or perhaps a warning, is that we have to look at demographic trends, population shifts, and just patterns to try to map how things are going. And what we have as an industry, we're going to continue to see that talent shortage. But if you look at, believe it or not, births in the United States, we are getting to actually a low point because there were fewer babies born in this country right in the aftermath and during the Great Recession. Why is that important? The babies that were born 2007, 2008, 2009 are now college age, right? And there are fewer kids entering college than there used to be, and then there are, by a definition, going to be fewer STEM school applicants, fewer people getting into engineering and architecture and environmental sciences. Just the pure numbers work that out. So folks, as a warning, but as just a reality of it, we're going to have fewer graduates in the disciplines that feed into this industry. So if you want to keep your talent, which is the most important thing, I don't care about what AI does. You still need people making these decisions, doing the analysis, getting things together. We are not going to be able to have AI replace people entirely, maybe partially, but the plain fact of the matter is we're going to have fewer bodies and brains coming into this profession just by the nature of demographics here for the next few years. So you got to get out there. Many firms do a great job getting into colleges, recruiting ahead of time, getting people into the pipeline. You got to double down on those efforts. To get the best candidates, you're going to have to work even harder.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of the kids going into the trades now as well, and it's real.
Speaking of recruiting ahead of time, I think your son is about ready to go to college.
College is on my mind right now.
Some of our listeners may be able to figure out where he's going to go and try to get him an offer.
That's a good. Yeah, we should actually get people into that pipeline 4 years in advance when my first son graduates. Great
I understand college is getting cheaper as well. Is that true?
Yes, across the board. Really.
Outstanding. Yes, I'm experiencing the same thing. Brendon, across a lot of firms, what's the one thing the best run firms do that's surprisingly simple?
Surprisingly simple to me is always leadership. The best firms have great leaders. They have diverse leaders. They empower folks around them to make decisions that are in the best interest of the business. They collaborate often. They make sure that others' opinions are heard and that when they make a decision, that they execute quickly.
Yeah, and talking and listening. I see a lot of leadership teams that don't do either, and it's the biggest waste in this industry that I see.
So when you say that that's what they do, that's simple. It ain't easy though, right? To make that happen on a continuous basis.
Right. Everyone's busy. Everyone wants their opinion heard. They're not always good when you do hear them, but good leadership teams in general work very, very well together. Again, it has to go beyond that leadership team. It has to be pushed down. So you're empowering other folks on the team to do the same type of thing. It makes it so that folks are just more efficient and more productive as opposed to having the bottleneck be at the top.
Right. And that's so true, Brendon. All firms have bottlenecks, but you want to push them down through the organization as much as you possibly can. So, Jon, you are always out and about. You're always talking and consulting with some of the CEOs of some of the leading firms, a lot of the leading firms in this industry. What are you seeing right now? What are leaders asking about right now that they weren't asking a year ago?
I'd say conversations have gotten a lot more honest and candid, Mark. So 2 years ago, 18 months ago, it was discussion of opportunity. It was how do we capitalize on a hot market. It was abundance of what's out there. We talk about the acceleration of M&A. We talk about technology. These are multipliers, and those multipliers have separated some of the winners and losers in the space. And so discussion right now is there's some FOMO that's out there, certainly. In certain cases, we've seen leadership teams that have been left behind. We've seen firms that are struggling to compete, firms that 18 months ago had very ambitious goals that have not been realized and are trying to find out that what's their place in the industry. Where do we go? How do we compete? Can we go at it alone?
So for our viewers, we use a lot of acronyms in our podcast. So, Jon, FOMO. Can you let us in on our viewers in on FOMO?
Yes, as the youngest member of the Morrissey Goodale ownership group, I'm the closest to some of these acronyms. FOMO, fear of missing out.
There you go. And what are they fearing that they're missing out on, Jon?
They feel that they're missing out on growth. They feel that they're missing out on advancement of the industry. We talk about this shift in how revenues are generated, some of the efficiencies that are out there. We talk about record profits and backlogs that are out there. And some of these firms look inside, and the performance just doesn't reflect what they're hearing at the conferences. It doesn't reflect what they're reading in the headlines.
So let's move to healthy firms versus busy firms, we'll say. And Brendon, we'll throw this to you. You are looking at firms daily. You are getting deals across the line daily, and it means that you really have to size up firms pretty quickly and efficiently. So if you had to diagnose a firm in 10 minutes, let's say we give you 10 minutes, what signals tell you it's a genuinely healthy firm versus it's not just slammed with work, which hides a lot of ills, as you well know?
Yeah, there are a number of factors that I think make a firm healthy. First is being able to produce financial statements. If you don't have that,
That's a plus.
If you don't have the internal controls there to manage the business, you're going to have problems regardless of how busy you are.
Yeah.
I think the most fundamental thing we look for is consistency. So when I look at financials, if there are a few significant swings in the top or the bottom line over time, say 5 years, generally stability versus being busy.
Yeah.
When I see those significant swings, I think of unsystematic risk, and there's probably some concentration of clients. There's probably some key man risk, some market sector risk, something like that in the business.
So it can look pretty stout, but in reality, it's kind of fragile.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, Brendon, can I ask you, you started with being able to produce financial statements, right? So if Nick and I have an architecture firm and we're designing the most incredible opera houses and we're loving what we do and we got 10 people around us, but we haven't produced financials for 90 days, it doesn't really matter to Nick and I, we just love to do design. How can you tell us we're not healthy?
One, not having good visibility into your business is already a problem, right? I mean, if you don't know if you can make payroll, you're just assuming that you can do that. It's not a great practice overall. And just because you design great buildings doesn't mean you do that profitably either. So you need to have good visibility into the economic health of your own business in order to make good decisions.
Got it.
Particularly cash in that situation, right? I mean, for a smaller architecture firm, you can be profitable and bankrupt at the same time.
Yeah, if I could add to that real quick, Mark, there is a difference we see in our work between having the tools, like the software systems, the accounting systems, and most firms do. They've made those investments in one of the industry-leading packages. There is flimsy knowledge at best in top management how some of those packages works. And so there's a difference between having the tools and actually using them the right way.
Yeah, it's like having teenagers and a dishwasher. It's sort of the same thing. So
there are a couple others as well, right? So
Yeah.
client concentration is a big one. If we
Right.
see if your top 10 client should make up no more than 25% of your business. If it's making up 80% of your business, you're in for a little bit of a ride if something goes south.
Yeah, you're very vulnerable in that case. Yep.
Labor metrics, for sure. Having healthy, sustainable utilization of your folks as opposed to wild swings.
Yeah.
When you have that healthy, stable utilization, you also likely have lower turnover, which is a positive in the business.
Right.
You're not constantly hiring and rehiring folks.
Right.
And it's good for client relationships as well. I would say the leadership is probably one of the most critical aspects of it. We've talked about a couple of those pieces, but the CEO, if they can convey the firm's value proposition and strategic vision, and they have that passed down beyond just themselves, that's institutionalized throughout the firm, and everyone's bought into it, generally a sign of a healthy business. And then I would say lastly, governance. So does the firm have a practice where one or two folks at the top kind of run the show, or do they have sort of an authority matrix for the folks around the operation of the business so that they can empower them to make decisions?
Yeah, everything you've spoken to, Brendon, it just talks about it just makes me think about vulnerability, and if you can be tight in all those areas that you talked about and have some redundancies or have some, particularly in leadership, have some succession in there, you're just not in that dangerous position, and it gives you so many more options to transition when you have that, and you're not dealing from a panic situation. Nick, when you look at this, as we talk about this topic, what to you are the most reliable indicators of long-term durability in an AE firm?
It's the phrase long-term durability that really sets that apart here. And the definitive characteristic, in my view, is that leadership transition, which Brendon mentioned a moment ago, leadership transition needs to be a process and not an event. It's not a big reveal. Who's going to be the CEO? Who's going to be the managing principal? Exactly. It should happen on a more or less continual basis. And this industry is so partial, for a lot of good reasons, to every leadership by everybody from benevolent dictators on one end to management by committee, may or may not be the founders, but the people who have been there for decades. And everybody gets used to that dynamic. It's comfortable. You can get out. Everybody makes the business work, but that dynamic does not last.
So Nick, earlier this year, we all contributed to our Word on the Street article, our predictions for next year. And one of the predictions was around this very topic, right? So with the average age of CEOs amongst the E&R top 500 design firms, which is a proxy for the industry at large, with that average age now ticking above 60, we're predicting that there are going to be more leadership transitions at the CEO level this year than ever before. And it speaks to, has the process been put in place to make that successful or not? Because it can't just happen in the last year.
Absolutely. And I always like to use the FAA mandatory retirement age of 65 as a benchmark. Obviously, a bit of a different industry, but it's characterized, this industry, like the airline industry, by people who really love their jobs, can be easily effective for years after the age of 65, but it does serve as a useful benchmark for we need to plan for what happens post that deadline.
And you're potentially limiting opportunities for other folks there, right?
Exactly.
I mean, there's one CEO, one CFO. If they're in those seats, no one else can be.
That's right.
Yeah, and then that also gets to this whole nifty 50 situation that we see, right? So if 50% of the equity is in the hands of folks who are 55 or older, you're heading to trouble.
Yep.
So when you're working with these firms and they're growing rapidly, maybe it's through acquisition, you've seen a lot of it. Do you see the culture start to strain when these firms are starting to get stitched together?
Yeah, I'd say before a transaction, Mark, the quiet or most obvious way that we see culture start to erode is a disconnection from leadership with the rest of the staff. That the executive team becomes more distant. They lose perspective from the boots on the ground of what's going on at the staff level. They've got little visibility early on. Or in a smaller company, you've got executive teams that are spending a lot of time with people, a lot of time with staff. As company grows, as the team grows, that becomes more and more difficult. As the responsibilities of the CEO and the executive team expand, that becomes challenging. And so you start to see culture crack.
It's tough to keep that fabric knitted together, and that it's getting stretched.
Yeah, and I think Jon is speaking to as well. You know, when you go from a founder type of organization to a next generation to the third generation, at each of those transition points, you got to look at the folks who are in the driver's seat, as it were, and whether they're qualified, have the capabilities to take it to the next level. And if they're not, it puts a lot of dysfunction into the business, lack of trust, kind of, everybody trying to figure out.
Then it all starts to unravel.
And my big concern there, Mark, at that point is if we're growing and there's dysfunction, then going back to Brendon's point about if you're healthy, you're going to be able to deliver financial reports and have really good controls. If there's growth and there's dysfunctionality at the transition point, that's where there's potential for fraud in the business.
Oh yeah, big time.
You've got to watch that.
Yep, and we have seen it.
Yeah.
So Brendon and Mick, there's work going on underneath all of this. There's actually work happening, and so Brendon, operationally, do you see any common failures when growth hits, where the firm is still winning work maybe, but the machine starts breaking underneath them?
Yeah, winning work is great. Having folks be able to execute that work is even more important. So most of the time when the machine breaks down, it's because folks are overutilized, overworked. They're not seeing the same benefit that the others in the organization may be seeing, the profits that are coming from the business. It's really hard to hire and train new folks, and you don't want to constantly be in that cycle because it's a distraction from the business. So most of the time, I think you got to focus on the people. And as you're investing time in business development, you should also be investing a similar amount of time in recruiting and staffing to make sure that you always have this pipeline of folks background.
Otherwise, folks get smoked, they get burned out, and then the whole chain of value production starts to break down. Those people who aren't developing, they can't improve the way the firm is producing its work or the way the work is done. And then from there, you start to lose your position with clients, and from there, the financials start to break down. You can't reinvest.
And you make mistakes on the design. You're not focused on quality. You're focused on output.
You can spiral down or you can spiral up.
Can I just say I'm getting the distinct feeling you're on an anti-growth bias with your questions here, Mark, and it's disturbing to me.
Well, it's a good observation, and it doesn't come without risk. is what I'll say there.
All right,
But
very good.
I'll add
Just
one more
wanted to add
point,
that.
Mark, which
Yeah.
is I think you start to see discipline and accountability start to slip. When you've got a growing
Right.
firm, you start to make more excuses, or you shouldn't make more excuses, but we see it a lot of making excuses of timesheets are not in time. Okay, it's all right. That
Yeah.
work's coming in. That individual continues to produce. Invoices aren't going out. Collections aren't happening at the same clip. There's small cracks in the system that are not immediately visible that over time tend to become self-destructive.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
accumulate, right?
accumulate.
Yeah.
But Mick, seriously, to your point, there are risks with that growth, but there are ways to grow sustainably and profitably, and you have to balance those things. You can't just focus on one thing, churning out the work, and neglect everything else, or you're going to ditch the firm. So, you're either going forward or you're going backward in the industry, unless you have a little lifestyle kind of, boutique firm that you don't intend to live beyond your involvement in it. You're either growing or you're taking a step back. And it's a balancing act, but lots of good firms can do it. It means you need to balance those 4 areas. Nick, if you want to scale and keep quality high, what's the hard trade-off leaders eventually have to accept? And why do so many try to dodge it?
Yeah, so Mark, I'm going to say something here that's going to be very hard for people to hear.
Hang on.
Brace yourself.
Hold on.
And,
Buckle up.
And I'm speaking exactly to the leaders of firms out there. These are the executives. These are the type A personalities that just tend to rise to the top in one business. And it doesn't matter how big or small the business is. It's just the way of the world. These people need to give up. That is what you need to do. You need to give up oversight of day-to-day tasks.
You're
You
not
need to
saying
give
quit
up
when you say
controls.
give up.
Well, if they want to, but maybe not right away. Back to my earlier comment, you want to plan for it, right?
Right.
But you need to give up the oversight of the day-to-day operational tasks. You need to give up touching clients each and every day. You need to focus on the high-level strategic aspects that are going to help the whole enterprise grow and sustain itself over a long period of time. And for people in this business, which is technology aside, very much a seller-doer model, right? That's how people have spent literally years and decades of their careers cultivating clients and making them happy. That is very, very tough. Giving up is tough.
Well, they've built their knowledge, they've built their network, and now you're just going to give it away.
Exactly.
And that can be kind of scary. And ego can get involved in that.
Absolutely.
Nobody can do it as well as me. It's just, it's something I have to do.
That's right. They're probably right, too.
Yeah.
But the people beneath you are never going to get good at what
That's
they
right.
need to do without
That's right.
that giving up.
One of my mentors said this early on in my professional career, which has obviously resonated with me. And it's what's on your plate, right? And I'm a food guy, so thinking actually what's on my plate, right? You go to a buffet, you end up hitting 7 of the 10 stations, right? You probably only want 3 or 4 of those, but you have to have the other 3 just because they're there, right? And in some cases, the CEO is not dissimilar in the sense that they have these legacy things on their plate that they probably don't want, but
right.
feel that they need to be there for some reason or not.
Are there king crab legs on the plate?
Not on mine. I can't afford those.
So remember in Las Vegas last time we were there? There was just king crab legs everywhere.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah, your plate was laden down.
We were talking about that yesterday, actually, with Vegas Vacation and the buffet of having some of the yellow, with
Oh, yeah. It's an
movie.
astonishing experience for those who haven't been to a Vegas buffet. It's...
$75 a pop is what it is. But
Yeah, but some of us can get our money's worth with that. So I want to talk about something related, and that is optionality. And Brendon, we'll go back to you with this. Even if a firm isn't, quote, for sale, what are the 2 or 3 things leaders should do to protect optionality?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think first it starts with being open-minded. So not assuming that your model is the best model or that it can't change. Just having open-mindedness allows thought leadership to come in from internal, external sources that can be valuable to the business. Good leaders really have a fiduciary responsibility to the business, their shareholder, to act in the best interest really of their shareholders and their employees. And that means sitting down with the board, sitting down with the leadership team, sitting down with other key employees, and talking about what considerations may need to be present in order for them to decide that maybe they should sell or they should explore taking on a partner. The challenge is gaining agreement on what those considerations are and make sure we're not chasing a unicorn, not the financial kind, but the horned mythical creature, and that does happen. So having the criteria laid out when you have an unsolicited offer come in, whether it be from a strategic, whether it be from a private equity partner, whether it be from a combination of the two, saying here's our top 10 list. We need at least the first 8 of these to be met before we're willing to go down this path.
Yeah. Did you just reference the Chronicles of Narnia in your response?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. That's the first time on the pod, Mark.
Yeah, that's a trademark problem. We'll need to
And
edit
second
that.
movie reference, just for the record.
Check. So sticking with that a little bit, you had mentioned keeping your options open. Jon, again, you're working out there with so many of these firms, successful firms in our industry. What is the earliest sign that a leadership team should start thinking about a sale?
Well, maybe before we get there, Mark, I want to go back to the question that you asked Brendon.
Yeah.
And we talked internally about a presentation, Mick, that I think you sat in, and there was a quote that I had liked from that discussion of build a business that everybody wants to buy, but you don't need to sell.
There you go.
And if use an analogy of a car, if you knew that you were going to have to make a purchase for a car, and that was the only car that you were going to own for the next 150 years, you'd treat that car very differently. So in terms of preparation and keeping options open, the options only exist if you're well prepared. If you have the ability to remain independent, you don't have to sell your business. Optionality comes from preparation. Optionality comes from having clean financials. Optionality comes from having succession and leadership transition that's built business. Optionality comes from systems. So having a business in which you're not forced in any one direction is how you best preserve your optionality.
Yeah. Now, Jon, to go back to your car analogy, you had a car. Now you don't, and I don't think you sold it.
I did not.
Yeah. Okay.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, then we'll dive into that one,
That's
that
another
little nugget a
podcast.
little bit later.
Safety-oriented, I think.
Nick, what are the most common risks firms will accidentally build into their business that reduce options later? Where do we start tripping up our underwear?
Yeah, like all things, it starts from a very good place, which is serving
We meant well.
Yeah, one client or client type very, very well, and that becomes the dominant force in the business. So it becomes a concentration of one client type. We've seen it in small firms. We've seen it in large firms that have market sector leaders or just divisions within the corporation that get really, really focused on one thing. Obvious example, of course, is just private sector site civil development. Everybody knows the market's going to tank, but that also happens in sectors that you think could be better long-term, like healthcare, right? We're always going to have sick people, so we always need more healthcare work, but it's a matter of being able to serve the clients through the peaks and the valleys of their spending, which will happen someday. So for all good reasons, you can do very, very well, earn very, very good money with one client or client type. Concentrating too much sets you up for a lack of diversification, which if you think of the business as a portfolio theory, right, of personal finance, you never know which sector in a given year is going up or down. You need to, as the business grows, diversify how you're serving different market sectors, and that's the long-term pathway to success.
And then can you get that diversification by expanding geographically as well?
That's one way for sure, but it's also a matter of just diversifying skill sets. And geographic expansion does not help you with interest rate increases, for instance. But there are pockets that are going to be all right or better than others, but you need to think about it very holistically.
So, Nick, I want to stay with you and shift to another topic, and that is partnerships, capital, and consolidation. How can leaders think about consolidation without getting distracted by it or even spooked by it? And we've seen that.
Well, first of all, it's a fact of life. And once you accept that it's a fact of life, and we're in now a basically 25-year run of rise and consolidation, 500 deals in the industry in the United States last year. That is a new threshold.
First time ever. Yeah.
That's big news. But guess what? The industry is still here. There's still more work out there, generally speaking, than there are professionals to do it. So you need to be aware that it's out there, not be scared by it. It works for some firms, not for others. And it doesn't matter if it's a private equity buyer that's buying up all your friends and neighbors, or if it's the large public that's been everywhere, right? It is something that does happen. It is good for certain firms. When it works best, people plan for it. There's the multi-year theme that we've been talking about, as opposed to a forced decision. But it is something that will continue. All indications are at the beginning of 2026 that there will be no headwinds in the M&A landscape. That is going to continue. And it's just the factors that were in place really starting 25 years ago that kicked this off in terms of better access to capital, better ways to grow and diversify a business more quickly are still very much in play today.
Yeah, better business acumen amongst leadership and management teams. And Nick, you mentioned private equity and publicly traded firms. Jon and I put together every year that top 10 movers and shakers list, and 2 of the firms in this year's are employee owned.
Right.
So it's happening everywhere.
Yep.
It's a fact of life.
So, Brendon, you see this all the time. You're constantly seeing how buyers are evaluating firms today. What's different about how they do that today than 2-3 years ago, maybe beyond just the numbers?
Yeah, it gives me anxiety sometimes thinking about how they do that. But I'm going to focus on 3 C's, which is clients, capability, and commitment. So does the firm have a sophisticated, scalable client base? Think Fortune 500 firms, Walmarts, and those, with deep pockets and a national reach. The days of a purely local client base are behind us, and firms are looking to scale and to do so quickly.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Capability is the next one here, and it's sort of a twofold factor. Does the firm have a wide service offering to a diverse client base to minimize concentration and reduce systematic risk?
Right.
Second, does the firm on the talent side have a deep bench of capable leaders of varying levels of experience to grow and support the professional development of other key individuals in the firm? So now you've got layers instead of just the top layer. And then I would say last is commitment. So a few years ago, we didn't see as many firms offer financial incentives as deep down the employee hierarchy. And it was mostly the selling shareholders that were benefiting. We also didn't see that a lot of those selling shareholders were rolling a lot of equity like they are today. It was maybe 10, 20%. Some of that was the cost of capital for PE firms they were partnering with and other things, or a quicker exit. But today, the incentives are significantly greater and run significantly deeper throughout the organization so that you are getting folks financially committed to it. And even though the market is really, really hot for them to go find another job somewhere, they don't want to because they like their job, they like the people they work with, and now they're financially incented and aligned with the growth in the business. So profits, interest units, management incentive plans, restricted stock, all those are great ways that firms are looking to get the buy-in from the staff.
So just a couple of things, Brendon. So you mentioned rolled equity there. For the folks who are watching who may be not familiar with that phrase, what does that mean?
That would be exchanging your current stock for the stock in the combined partnership or your new the firm that's acquiring.
Okay, so if I buy Cussio Enterprises for $100 million, does that mean you're not taking $100 million in cash? You're taking some of that and putting it back in?
Yeah, so if I took 20% in rolled equity, then I would have $80 million in cash and $20 million in Cussio.
So that's what rolled equity is. Can I get that in Cussio stock, by the way?
You can pay $100 million.
The other thing you mentioned there, which I think is super important, you talked about layers being important. I learned about this concept from Bob Berglund of Merrick & Company way back. And Bob was one of my mentors, great manager. But he talked about the zipper relationships that you need between the AE firm and the client, which means that you got at the top of the zipper, it's CEO to CEO. Then next down, VP to VP. Then it's project manager to project manager, and technical lead to technical lead. Boom. You zipper the relationships and you build your succession plan around that.
Interesting.
It's you're hard to fire when you have that zipped up. And Brendon, as you were speaking, it struck me that all the things we've been talking about and what you talked about are all interwoven. These organizations, everything is interwoven. Mm-hmm. You got to do a lot of things at once to be successful. Jon, we'll wrap up this topic with you. What questions should firm leaders be asking themselves right now about independence, about partners, and about long-term fit?
Mm-hmm. It all comes down to the goal of the firm, Mark. And I can take this from buy side or I can take this from sell side. Increasingly, we are getting requests from buyers that are trying to understand readiness, that we talk about 500 deals, but outcomes have been increasingly bifurcated. Alongside 500 deals, you've seen multiples in some markets that have gone up 30, 40, 50%. The need to prepare, the need to be able to compete at that level increasingly hinges on success after a transaction. So we're getting a lot more requests from groups that are pre-preparing, trying to get more education, sophistication on building out of teams, processes, systems, because if they're going to be successful in this M&A market and they're going to compete with the elevated valuations that are out there, they're going to have to do more post-transaction to be able to generate the return that is expected as a part of that valuation. Similarly with sellers, pre-preparation is incredibly important. That most firm owners don't have access to the same information that we do as M&A advisors that are in the thick of it all day, every day. And so we throw out terminology like rolled equity. We talk about private equity with the assumption that everybody knows as much as we do about these terms. But the education, the understanding of the goals of the management team, the understanding of the goals of the organization, the requirements of the shareholders' preparation up front is incredibly important, because the answer or the direction behind those goals may have significant influence on who the ultimate partner is or what the preference for exit ultimately means.
To your point, sorry, Brenda, about the preparation for integration and post-transaction performance. Since we added our integration panel at our M&A and business symposiums, it's the number one panel.
Number one panel.
Number one attended panel. Everyone's trying to figure out how to integrate seamlessly and get on our best post-transaction performance list.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting takeaways from some of the data that we looked at as a part of our 2025 M&A year in review was how much of the volume is coming through repeat acquirers. That if we were to go back a decade ago, you've got about 24 firms that were doing 2+ transactions a year. Fast forward to 2025, you had more than 80 firms that are doing multiple acquisitions a year.
Yeah.
You had 25 firms that did 4+ acquisitions a year. So consolidation is increasingly leaning towards, or the winners of the consolidation war are increasingly focused on those that have built out the infrastructure needed to move fast, integrate successfully, and realize value after the transaction is completed.
You nailed it. It's amazing what those corporate development and leadership teams and integration teams amongst the top movers and shakers are able to achieve in terms of acquiring, integrating, and creating value for shareholders and increasing level of service for clients. Just remarkable. And opportunities for employees.
Correct.
All right, Mick, it's that time. Your favorite part
Is this
of the
first
podcast.
one of 2026?
Well, it is, and it's a word to the wise lightning round with our expanded panel here.
Extravaganza.
So, as you viewers may know, our word to the wise feature is where we ask our guests for some wise words. And so, Nick, let's start with you. What's the most underrated leadership habit in an AE firm?
consistently reinforcing the mission of the enterprise. Every time the CEO, managing principal, gets up in front of the team internally, even externally, you got to say why the firm is in business and what they're doing. We're blessed because we have people in this industry that love coming to work, doing good work and making their clients happy. But those people need to hear why the firm exists and what it's there for. Now, if anybody listening to this is thinking to themselves, I don't know what the mission of my firm is, there's your problem and there's your homework assignment right now.
And every firm has a mission. You just got to chip it out of the marble and articulate it. Thank you, Nick, for those wise words. Brendon, what's the most common phrase that sounds smart but causes damage?
There are so many, Mark. Where do we begin? I would say, to keep it relatively simple, I think the one that I hear most, that it always irks me when I hear it, is we can easily grow our business. And it isn't that simple. Yeah, right. Go ahead. Exactly. Right. If we could grow our business overnight, we all would. Right. But it takes planning. It takes resources. It takes your clients being on board for it, people to do the work, having space for them to sit in the office. So many factors go into the ability for a firm to just turn it on, right? Turn the machine on and keep it sustainable. So every time I hear that, I think, okay. Yeah. So I'd like to win the lottery too.
I can easily hit this 3-word off the fairway.
I could. I just don't want to show up. Thank you for those wise words, Brendon. And Jon, let's wrap up with you. What's the most overused claim AE firms tell about themselves?
The one that tends to stand out to me, Mark, is innovative. We hear that buzzword a lot. It means very little. The industry is evolving rapidly. Technology is changing dramatically. When pushed, very few firms can describe what innovation means. The ones that we see that are innovative have dedicated budgets. They've got dedicated teams to innovation. They're making real progress in their business. Words on a website mean very little.
Yeah, and you're spot on. I talk to firms about innovation all the time. Lots of them tell me, well, our clients really don't want innovation. Even though they can't define what the innovation is, they don't want it. And we've got all kinds of tools and technology. We don't necessarily use them.
The big flaw there, too, is their ability to measure it. And I think a lot of folks want to be innovative. They implement ChatGPT in their business or AI, right, to take care of menial tasks. But you need something that is actually measurable. To your point on budgets, if you put a budget in place, you should be able to measure the return and the success of those investments quantitatively and qualitatively.
Yeah.
Nick, Brendon, Jon, thanks for joining us today. And thanks to our viewers. As always, please like and subscribe. And we hope to see you next time on The Street.